Welcome to Business Authority Radio, bringing you insights from today's thought leaders, professionals, and influencers. With your hosts, Neil Howe and Craig Williams.
Hello, this is Craig Williams, and welcome to another edition of Business Authority Radio. I have the distinct pleasure of having Charles Hoff, CEO and co-founder of PCI University. PCI University is an assessment platform designed to specifically help businesses, no matter the size, and franchises to understand the complexities of PCI and DSS. And we're gonna break down all of these acronyms, but it's very important in the transaction of point of sale to avoid the challenges in the data breaches that happen, even now. We're in the midst of coming down from one of the biggest data breaches in security that our country has seen. Charles, tell us how you got into this business with your extensive background. I mean, you're an attorney. You've been on many boards. The great thing about what you do and how you do it is that you've been on both sides of the business coin, might I ask. And I've learned that there's a great appreciation for those people who have worked on both sides to be able to serve the consumer and the business owner at the same time, because you have a heart for it in a sense. So please share with us how you got into this business and why PCI University is more relevant today than ever before.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, Craig. And yes, it's been quite a career. The common thread of my entire career has been ID theft and fraud.
Wow.
And confronting that. It goes back to my years at Equifax, which I'm sure we'll get to a little later.
Ironically.
I had the pleasure of working for Equifax for almost 20 years. I was their senior VP in International Counsel. And friends still joke with me that I was doing ID theft and fraud before it was cool. But it is a very serious subject. And,
seems like you left too early, though.
I don't think so. We'll tell you why in short order. But I left Equifax and I became general counsel for the Georgia Restaurant Association.
Wow.
And I had a private legal practice as well, representing many of the large chains in the country as well as small restaurants. And the interesting thing is the National Restaurant Association, with its 300,000 plus members, knew my background coming from Equifax, and they were very troubled with the fact that so many of their members were starting to experience serious security data breaches. And they weren't quite sure what to do about that, and they asked me to come in and really act as a consultant and educate and demystify, the issues with payment card industry data security standards. PCI is the acronym. And so we had an opportunity, and we did it really old school, very frankly. Went around the country making speeches on behalf of the NRA, white papers. We did webinars, whatever it took along.
You were a true authority and advocate for this move.
Well, it means a lot to me. Yeah. I've seen too many victims, and very frankly, while I was doing that too, I was helping breached restaurants, restaurant operators who were losing their businesses. And I was actually litigating on their behalf as well, or managing litigation. And but that's another story. But with the National Restaurant Association, I realized that, very frankly, Craig, this is a very complex and boring, dull, and very dry subject matter for most people, particularly those...
Our money? Are you kidding me?
Well,
the security of our money?
Well, it shouldn't be. You're absolutely right. And that's what I preach. But the technology side is what is so difficult for so many people. And a good friend of mine was one of the first in at WebMD. And he said, I was saying, gee, this is really a tough nut to crack, because I see the eyes glazing over. And he said, you know what? You need to figure out maybe a WebMD approach where data security in the same fashion, but making it as engaging and as entertaining as possible.
Gotcha.
And so that was the genesis of PCI University. We have a patent pending platform. We were able to really first and foremost take it's when you talk about PCI, God bless the Data Security Council. They're wonderful people.
Yeah.
And I think the world of them, but it's like a alphabet soup of acronyms.
Yeah.
And they talk at a level that really is not comfortable for most operators, whether it's a restaurant, a retail establishment, just in general. Mm-hmm. So we break that down and demystify, and our patent pending platform gives an assessment where we really focus on where most of the breaches have occurred and relate that to PCI, because you can't take all of PCI in one platform because you have, even those 12 requirements, there's over 350 subcomponents.
Yeah.
But we break that down and we provide an education while they're getting the assessment. We give them a score as to how vulnerable they are to a breach, and in terms of how many infractions too that they have with data security. And at the same time, we give them an immediate customized action plan, how to really mitigate, minimize their vulnerability and exposure. And we even have a vendor section too, if they wish to, if they need a firewall, if they need scanning, managed services.
Very comprehensive. Players. So you have a very comprehensive solution to this.
It is holistic,
yeah.
And you know, it is a layered approach when it comes to data security. You know, those in the business always talk about really being holistic with it. You have EMV, which is the chip card,
yeah.
and which is great for counterfeit and stolen cards. But even though we've done very well here with that in the U.S., the fact is when it comes to e-commerce and card not present fraud, which you have so much of, it spiked considerably. And that's what happened in Europe as well when it was introduced. And here in this country, we have a chip and the signature. It's really not chip and pin yet. So you're missing that pin authentication that you do have in Europe, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Then you have point-to-point, validated point-to-point encryption, which is so vital, and tokenization, the way of encryption. You know, the P2PE is great. Point-to-point encryption is great when it comes to transmission of data. Tokenization was the data is at rest when using it for marketing. It's protective. And then it comes down to really people. Yeah. And education, because still the vast majority of data breaches stem from issues when it comes to people issues. I mean, we're not infallible.
Yeah.
And it's so important. It comes down to people, process, and technology. And so many times you see companies doing what they need to in terms of investing in technology, and we're thrilled about that, but they're not doing quite as much on the education side.
It seems similar to tax laws. I mean, that's why I have a CPA and accountant, you know, because I would gather that the laws or the processes change with technology changing. You just talked about the chip. And the last year I started using the card with the chip, and then I've got daughters in college, so it's easy to pass money back and forth, that type of thing with that. But like you said, the card not being present, if I could do that, other people can do that too if they have access to that. And we do a lot of e-commerce, online shopping or buying food, whether it be Uber Eats or the like, and the card's not always present. And so, I mean, there's a lot of things that the consumer doesn't look like. We're looking at it from the ease standpoint, whereas the business, with our ease and our comfortability of using these cards, a lot of the liability falls on the business owner. And from what I understand, the challenge is that, of course, businesses they're focusing on how to serve and take money. So sometimes they're not always looking that much deeper as you all would do with your assessments.
It is so true. And that's a great point, Craig. I mean, you have where really you mentioned laws. This is not a law. When it comes down to payment card industry, these are standards. These are best practices that were established in starting 2006. They started the big credit card companies when it came to the MasterCard, Visa, American Express, Discover. You had a major Japanese player. They formed the Security Council. And starting in 2006, they made these best practice uniform. And it's not a law, but it's a contractual obligation which affects every entity in this country, and it goes beyond the U.S. as well, that stores, manages, or transmit credit card data. And that covers most everybody.
Yeah.
And the difficult thing is that it's a contractual obligation that whenever you as a business, as a small business, say you need to use credit cards, right? There's very few that get away with just cash.
Yeah.
And you have a merchant acquirer, you have the bank, the card processor, where you sign an agreement in terms of using those cards that you have to comply fully with these data security standards.
Gotcha.
And
so it's all that fine print that we don't read after we sign.
It's all embedded in those agreements.
Gotcha.
And unfortunately, that's why still today the majority of merchants, and even those that are breached, don't know as much as they need to about PCI, very little at all, until they're breached.
Yeah.
Then they become evangelical and then too late in the game.
Yeah.
Because very frankly, the statistics are stunning, Craig. I mean, you're looking at approximately 60% of small companies that go out of business within 6 months of a breach. And I'll tell you why that happens if you like.
Yes, please.
Well, it's, I think about it, elections gone by. Remember that question that the media would ask a lot of times, what would you do if you got that call at 3:00 in the morning where a politician, president of the United States, how would you react?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, that call to a merchant, your neighborhood dry cleaner, retailer, restaurant, whatever.
Cupcake shop.
Cupcake
even.
shop, great example. It may come at 3:00 in the afternoon, but it comes from typically the credit card company that they use issuing cards. And they say, gee, there looks to be a regularity in the use of credit cards in your business, which may reveal that there's been a data security breach. And at that point, the credit card company says, okay, now you got to go with your card processor and work out what needs to be done in terms of your PCI-DSS compliance. And the first thing that the cupcake owner-operator learns is that they have to engage in a forensic audit. And they have to pay for that audit too, because that, again, is in the agreement.
Oh.
And then with that forensic audit, and there's a select number of companies to choose from. You can't select any company that may please you. You have to go with one that's identified by the council. And at that point, there's infractions that come into play. The problem is, it's a misnomer to even talk about PCI compliance because nobody is compliant 100% of the time. I mean, with 12 requirements, it doesn't sound too bad. They look intuitive when you see it. But with over 350 subcomponents, it ebbs and flows. You do the best you can.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see these huge breaches, too, with these massive companies, Equifax, with Anthem, some major card processing companies who are the ones monitoring and helping to manage their small business customers and large business customers alike. And they're the ones so often that have been breached as well. Some of the biggest breaches we've had. So, but at any rate, at that point when you first are alarmed to hear that there may have been breaches, some data security breaches in your shop, you find out the forensic audit, which will identify where there have been vulnerabilities, exposure, infractions to the standards. And then you could be fined. There's penalties, fines that oftentimes are assessed. They may be some operators feel that it may be somewhat capricious. That's the problem I have with. I love the fact that we have uniform data security standards. Unfortunately, sometimes they're applied in what I consider draconian fashion. And for instance, the card processor is able to withhold 6 figures in terms of your accounts receivables. That's why so many businesses go out, by the way. I mean, how many companies can really survive that kind of cash flow issues? And then you have issues pertaining to chargebacks, fraudulent chargebacks, reissuance of cards, which $25 to $50 at a pop. So with these penalties, forensic audit charges, chargebacks, the price for mediation, you got to have, most cases too, to be responsible to your customers. You want some credit monitoring. There's so many factors that come into play, and that money keeps adding up. And that's why when you see that the average breach, when you read that it's approximately $3.6 million, then you see that, hey, even how small companies can go under so easily of course, when you look at an Equifax, an Anthem, it's just exponential in terms of the cost and damages. But you asked why I got in business too. It's a legacy play for me because I'm very concerned about these small, medium-sized businesses. That's the bedrock of our economy.
Yeah, it's the future of our economy. That's all that America has left. I constantly mention to people that corporations, they're still having the merger and acquisition play that keep themselves alive. And like you mentioned, as far as Equifax, they have this hit, but it's not going to take them under as it would a smaller player in that sense. And so the small businesses are growing at an astronomical level by the moment. So it's very important that you have that security and that of the data and the processes of e-commerce.
So very true. What we're facing is a national crisis right now.
Yes.
You're looking at approximately 28 million small, medium-sized businesses. And it's been really, the surveys show that about half, about 14 million, have been subject to cyber attacks. That there's approximately 390,000 cyber threats every day that they're confronting. And now Congress is looking to address this, but they're trying to figure out the answers. But it's very, very troubling to say the least. Everybody gets hit. Consumers obviously have a lot to worry about in terms of the credit reports, and it's a tremendous aggravation and upset. And they put a lot of hours into correcting reports after they've been breached. But again, our focus has really been on the small and medium-sized businesses that are going under. You read it in the paper, you hear the media about Equifax and all Target, Home Depot, all the large players. But the fact of the matter is that it's like, remember the old bank robber of the 20th century, Willie Sutton?
Yes, yes.
When they
asked him why did he rob banks? What was his inspiration?
Remember the answer?
That's where the money is.
Exactly. and today in the 21st century, the answer would be, well, that's where the data is.
Yes.
That these modern day robber barons, these hackers, are going where the data is.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is, look, there's such a treasure trove when you look at an Equifax and these large retailers and healthcare companies. It just makes it worth their while to really do everything they can to penetrate their systems. But at the same time, most hackers are lazy, and they're looking.
And then they have the help of algorithms and artificial intelligence to help do the work that they don't
they're
need
buying
to do.
These self-starter kits on the dark web for less than $200.
Yeah.
And they're looking for low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
And when you look at small, medium-sized businesses, they don't have the IT resources, the staffing, everything they need in terms they have such big constraints there. I had a client once that is a dairy farmer. He said, well, I can't believe I was even on their radar. I just sell milk and eggs.
And the simplicity of it, and the vulnerability of that mindset. I just do this. And I think about, there are some behaviors that my bank will pick up. If I go to a different ATM, they see my behavior there, but they have the capacity to do that. And so I see the point that you're making in regards to a smaller business not having that infrastructure to, they're just trying to pay the bills.
They are.
They're trying to stay in business.
Exactly. Yeah. And for hardworking operators, it takes everything they can to run that business at a profit.
Yes.
And again, they don't have these IT constraints, the resources. And very frankly, it's still tough at times convincing them that, hey, you know what? You are being targeted.
Yes.
Because they think they're below the radar and who's going to worry about me? But the fact of the matter is, and this is what I really want to make clear and as part of, like I said, with the legacy, is to really let these companies know and help prevent them from experiencing that kind of incredible pain and suffering. Be taken out of business, their employees losing jobs, all because of hacks that they could have avoided. You know what? The crime, Craig, other than the obvious one, is that most all of these breaches can be avoided.
Yeah.
It's very simple computer hygiene most of the case. Yeah. And you could avoid the phishing. There's so much in the way of education awareness. that can and needs to be done. And that's why we're so thrilled with the customer base that we have. Even though we're not in a position to go directly to small business to protect them, we have large organizations that we serve, large companies in the card processing, payroll. You mentioned large franchisors, retailers, restaurant chains, that this is how they protect their franchisees, because franchisees are by definition small businesses, most all of them, maybe some medium businesses, the multi-unit ones, but the same token, they need more support. And that's the weak link. And that's why so many franchisors are thrilled that we're out there providing this to them so they could white label this on behalf of their organization to help their franchisees and those operators in the field. And they get copies of the reports where they see the weaknesses and exposure so that they can remedy them.
I went to your site, and what's intriguing is you have simplified it so that the layman can understand it. There's a video, and I think it says it all. I mean, there's Bob and his little hot dog stand, and you simplify it, how easy it is to overlook and miss out on. We talk about keeping the hygiene. You said keeping the hygiene of the business. It's like, you take a bath or a shower every day. You don't say, hey, it's Friday, I took one on Monday, and think that you're going to be covered, that whole week. There's going to be a stench of business,
Yes.
So I see that you all are really creating an environment that is not only comprehensive and holistic, but it's easier for the business person to want to learn more about how to protect themselves. And through the assessments, you have this PCIQ, and you also even offer this free action plan to help businesses start. You're not asking for money. You're really an educational source. Yeah, you're a for-profit business, but you're coming as a true, like you said, this is a legacy piece, and you're being able to share all of the knowledge and understanding that you have in this industry. And I think it's incredible. It's an interesting approach.
I appreciate that very much, and that Bob video has gone viral, and it does get a lot of play. And everybody can
the
see
voiceover sounds so familiar.
Then it grate on your nerves, isn't it?
It's powerful.
Well, thank you. And then we have even a cost data breach calculator where business can see, they can get an idea of how expensive the breach can be. And we take them behind the curtain where we show them how we factor that all in, how the numbers add up readily. And then, of course, we go to the assessment, and then you have, when we say PCI University, we have all the breakdown in terms of the most salient issues. And, I think the greatest validation we got is when we were early on, the Data Security Council actually came to us. They were one of our first Twitter followers.
Wow.
And they said, you know what, you're doing a better job in educating the small and medium-sized businesses than we are. I mean, the Data Security Council does an excellent job with large enterprises, and they've come a long way. They've improved significantly, but still, it's very, very important to have this foundation. You do have companies like Trustwave. You got some very fine companies out there that have wizards for how to do the self-assessment questionnaires with each merchant. Has to fill out on an annual basis. But the problem is, in the business, they refer to a lie to comply kind of mentality, in that if you're a merchant, a business person, this thing is onerous. It's over the heads of a lot of people that aren't tech savvy. And they just want to get through with it. Check the boxes. And the problem is, just like when you cheat on a test, it's not going to help you.
No, it doesn't, because you haven't learned the lesson.
And so we lay the foundation for companies that provide those kind of wizards, and for the SAQ, and why the assessment and why scanning is so important. So, one of our merchant acquirer clients refer to us as the Switzerland in the business, because we work so well with all these players who provide the security products and the managed services.
You're truly a compliment to, like you said, you're there for the big picture of it. You're not trying to just push the brand of PCI University, as you are trying to help businesses stay viable businesses. My personal observation is, as general counsel to the Georgia Restaurant Association and other boards that you sat on, the wisdom of being able to have the right people on the bus to help you along this. You have a partner that we're both familiar with, and he's come on to help in those areas of expertise to make sure that the messaging is effective, that the brand is who it says it is. And tell us a little bit about that relationship.
I'm so glad you mentioned. Lee Hicks is my business partner and the chief marketing officer. And we're truly blessed. You could not find somebody who really is more proficient and expert when it comes to sales and marketing. He's literally written the book. He's got Amazon #1 bestseller.
#1 bestseller. I had him on just recently.
He's an impressive guy.
Yes.
Not exactly low energy, is he?
Not at all.
And he's a tremendous force.
Yeah.
And he's been doing an outstanding job. And we're so fortunate to have him as a chief marketing officer and as my business partner.
Wow.
A wonderful person. He's got a great consulting strategy company. And wherever I get the time, I try to help out with that. But he's doing a phenomenal job.
Well, it makes sense with Lee. He's making the best companies even better. And I would have to say, with the work that you're doing, there's a lot of great businesses out there. And all they do, the last thing they need is a breach into the data of their customer base or something to trip them up in the sense of being able to continue to deliver the services and the products that help us all thrive in our everyday lives. Tell us what's on the horizon for PCI University.
Well, I'm so glad you raised that. We're currently putting together, of course, we're always updating.
Yeah.
And looking ahead, 2018,
you better.
it changes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's never static. The nice thing too is that we're small enough where we're very agile. And so we do a lot of customization. Bob the restaurateur is going to be Bob the gas station operator, a food truck operator soon, and going to be a retailer. And so it's very easy to do that and
to adapt.
And working with these companies too, there is something that nobody else does in the business, and that is there's a marketing component that comes into play with our product and a back-end data analytics, which I won't get into the specifics with you, but it's something that is a tremendous differentiator to go with what we already have. And we've been asked to put together a similar platform too for the data protection regulations with the EU, the GDPR, that May of 2018, companies that are doing business in the EU or with EU customers, data subjects, as they're referred to, are going to be impacted. And that there are very stringent data protection requirements that they need to adhere to. And you talk to U.S. companies and say, well, gee, I do have e-commerce business and I have UK citizens, but what do I need to worry about with GDPR? Well, a lot. Very, very tough penalties and requirements. And so we're working on that platform as we speak. Also, there's a legal HR compliance, tax and accounting, working with some of the biggest law firms and accounting firms in the country. And we're going to have something very special for the hospitality industry, hotel and restaurants in very short order. Maybe next time I could brag a little bit about our law firm and top accounting and consulting firms.
With this recent data breach that Equifax has been a part of, unfortunately, do you see them reaching out to PCI University to help ease some of this this challenge that's in? I mean, over a third of Americans from the numbers.
Yeah, 143 million. It also affects UK and Canadian citizens. It pains me greatly. I still have a lot of friends at Equifax.
Yeah.
I think the world of the company. And just for the record, TransUnion and Experian, the other two major credit reporting companies, also have had breaches. Of course, this one is
the granddaddy of
the granddaddy, and but they'll rebound. But look, there's their CEO Richard Smith was quoted as saying we're confronting cybersecurity risk in a daily fight, and it is daily. Here you're looking at the hackers breached a vulnerable spot in the U.S. website application. And there's a question, and we'll see how it all comes out, but whether Equifax could have applied a patch, a security patch, again, going back to hygiene.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to pile on. I feel very bad. They'll come back. They'll rebound. We do. There have been some discussions as far as with those guys where we could help, where we're more than happy to. But they'll come back strong, and they're going to learn from this, and I think after a while people will be forgiving. I mean, the tough part is after a breach, and so many companies have learned this. Their affinity and loyalty customers percentages go down significantly.
Yeah.
Now they have to do so much more to bring them back into the fold, but. When we're talking about all the economic costs associated with a breach, that doesn't take into account the biggest and the most intangible, and that is the brand. And how it tarnishes your reputation. When a large franchisor, for instance, gets hit hard, it may have been on the franchisee side, but what you read in the paper is just the name of the company. And so,
Charles Hoff, man, it's been a pleasure having you on Business Authority, and I think our listeners really appreciate the knowledge, the wisdom, and the legacy that you're building here. CEO and co-founder of PCI University. Tell us how we could find out more about PCI, or get some of these assessments you have available. How do we find you? Numbers?
Well, PCIUniversity.com is our site. I mean, everybody's invited to, and we encourage people to see the Bob video. And then, of course, we have demos, which we can arrange. They won't find on the site really the tools and this patent pending projects that we have.
But it's very informative. It's a very informative site.
And they just need to contact us through that. We'll do the demo, and we'll take them through. And, of course, they can reach out. I'm always delighted to do whatever I can to help.
Is there a telephone number? This will be on the show notes as well, but is there a telephone number that you'd like to share, or any other social media
Well, we do have a Twitter account. We do it through Twitter.
So
and
everything PCI University.
Yeah, PCIUniversity.com, and that'll get them to us.
Thank you, Charles.
Pleasure. Thank you, Craig.
You've been listening to Business Authority Radio with Neil Howe and Craig Williams. To learn more about the resources mentioned in today's show, or to listen to past episodes, visit businessauthorityradio.com.